All right, now we can talk a little bit about the mid game. The mid game is where things start to get a little bit nuanced and a little bit complicated. The laning phase is relatively simple. The biggest thing that you're trying to do in the laning phase is just try to get an edge over your single opponent. So you're last hitting, you're getting a bunch of souls, you're trying to get more souls than your opponent out of the lane, but there isn't a lot of ambiguity in terms of like, is this the right place to be on the map? Am I doing the right thing? Am I using my time effectively? It's really just like, can I out mechanics this other person in the lane and try to get more out of the lane than they do. In the mid game, the rest of the map starts to open up to you. So now suddenly there's 4 different lanes that you could possibly be in. At the 10-minute mark, you know, your runes are going to start spawning, the urns are going to start spawning, and there's just a lot more on the table for you to do. So first I want to talk about sort of an overarching idea. One thing I'll say here is that I'm trying to future-proof these as much as possible, so I'm going to try to avoid being like very, very prescriptive in this, in the sense of being like, at 10 minutes, you should be doing this. At 12 minutes, you should be doing this. I don't even think that's really how this game works anyway. Instead, we're just going to try to talk about like a mindset that, you know, if you think about things in this way, it should be able to reliably get you to make better decisions, no matter what the patch is, right? So the biggest mindset thing is just that time in any MOBA is the biggest resource that you have. You have to be using your time as effectively as possible. If you are spending a lot of time just like sitting over here and you're in your shop and you're just like, Mystic Reach increases the range and effect of radius of your abilities and items. Okay, that sounds pretty good. Reduces the cooldown of you're wasting too much time. Every second that you're spending not actively making your character stronger or making somebody else on your team stronger is time that your opponents have to leverage and try to do one of those two things, to either make themselves stronger or make their team stronger. And so it's really important that you, in your attempt to maximize your time and efficiency, are trying to get everything out of every second that you possibly can. So part of this is like, as we're moving through the map, we want to be trying to break these little boxes and whatnot. Because as we notice, they drop permanent stats and sometimes money, right? So why is it important that we're breaking the boxes as we go? It's because it costs basically no time to do this at all. We just break some boxes, we keep moving, got more souls, all right? Now these creeps here, we could try to kill them, but notice that this is taking a significant amount of time. But I have to reload, I have to try to use an ability maybe, and now my abilities are on cooldown. Now I can't fight for the next like 20 seconds. We melee, we're reloading again, right? That took a significant amount of time, and we got like maybe 250 souls out of it. So we have to start wondering about, is it worth it? Especially if we compare taking a jungle camp to like coming in this lane, boom. 50 souls, another 100 souls. So that's 200 souls right there. That's 300 souls right there. We've already exceeded what we've gotten out of the farm. Now we've gotten 500 souls out of it, right? So if we can be in a lane farming these creeps, it's much faster to kill lane creeps, for one, because you're getting the advantage from your other creeps also attacking it. It's just more gold in general because one creep is going to give you roughly 100 as opposed to one of these little small guys that's just going to give you 50 when you kill it, right? And you're also, you know, you're pushing the lane in, you're putting some pressure on the enemy objectives, and you're also freeing up some space for you and your team to be playing in, right? So in general, it's if you can be in a lane safely pushing, then it's going to be better than taking these jungle camps. Again, as we're moving through the map, we're just going to break any box that we see, any urn that we see, fire rate, boom, souls, boom, and it's costing basically no time for us to be able to do this at all, right? So it's very, very important that we're trying to get everything out of the time that we have as possible. So like a room like this, I wouldn't even try to take this right now, because even if we could and we would survive, it would just be way slower than trying to go and find something else on the map to do, right? So this is a basic principle, is trying to get everything out of the time that we have as possible. Now, what do we do? There's 3 different ways that, here, I guess we could start here. How do we know when the laning phase is over? How do you know that you're entering the mid game and it's time to start playing on other places on the map? I think the easiest tell for a new player is going to be just once a tower has died. So either your tower or the enemy tower. So why is this? We come back over to this yellow lane. If we come here and we're under our tower, we're feeling relatively safe. We step out, we try to start pushing. As we push, we're now pushing pretty deep into enemy territory. If we look at the mini-map, now at this point, the enemies are able to come and flank us from behind here. They're able to come to these rooftops and try to gank us here. And as we push further and further to the enemy objective, it's going to get riskier and riskier for us, right? Same is sort of true if we were to take if the enemy were to take our tower and their tower was still up, right? So we could push maybe here, but the problem is that if our tower is dead, then we don't have anywhere that we could really retreat back to easily. If we're here and we still have a tower alive and we're like pushing in this area and somebody tries to come and gank and rotate in from the side, we can just do this, jump back, and suddenly we're under our tower again. We're feeling pretty good. But if this tower was dead and we're trying to push in this exact same area and somebody comes and attacks us, then we're a long ways away from being able to get to our walker, right? It's a decent ways away, and it gets exponentially worse as we push up further and further. So once either your tower is dead or the enemy tower is dead, you can come back to this lane once it's safe. So if the enemy creep wave pushes up here, then we could come over here and try to farm that because we're feeling pretty safe. Or if our first tower is dead and the creep wave pushes up here, then we could come over here because we're chilling next to our walker. We're also feeling pretty safe here. But unless we have something that we can feel pretty safe under, then we don't want to push out too far. So once a tower is dead, that is a pretty good indicator that your laning phase is over and you could probably be doing better things out on the map. Now, what kind of mindset do we take into this mid game? We'll hop up here. The way I see it, there are 3 different ways that your lane can turn out. And to describe this, I'm going to have to bring out a veteran of the channel. If you've been here a while, you'll probably recognize this. We'll say it. 3, 2, 1. Microsoft Notepad. That's what's up. Okay. So the binary is you're feeling strong, right? Or you're feeling weak. Okay. If you're coming out of this laning phase and you've killed the enemy tower, you've gotten a couple of kills, you have more souls than other people in the lobby, you're feeling pretty strong, then it's important that you leverage this strength very directly. Okay. So what do we mean by this? Can we extend this out? Is this going to break anything? No, we're chilling. So you leverage this strength in a very direct way. This means killing enemy heroes or taking towers / objective. Well, really just towers. Here, talk about that. So if we're feeling strong, we have more souls than anybody in the lobby. We have more items than anybody in the lobby. We've got more kills than anybody in the lobby. And we're just spending our time like down here. We're fighting jungle camps. We're not pushing any lane. We're just trying to farm these. We're not helping our team, get any kills, take any towers, anything like that. Then we're effectively wasting our strength. What's the point of being strong if we're not leveraging it to get an upper hand on the opponent, right? So when you're strong, it's very important that you come out of your lane and you're trying to help other people. So if this lane, even if this lane wasn't struggling, even if this lane was doing perfectly fine, it would be a great idea to come over here, be pushing this lane with them and try to take their tower if we haven't taken the tower in this lane already. Say this lane was already pushed in, they'd already taken their tower, fine. We could just rotate over to another lane and try to take that tower with them, right? But because we're strong, it's important that we're out on the map and we're trying to leverage our strength to help make other players on our team strong, right? In a very direct way. Now, the alternative is that we come out of the laning phase feeling pretty weak, all right? And the way I see it, there's a delineation here as well. And it's, does your character have CC? This is crowd control. Or does your character have no CC? Okay. So crowd control is anything like stuns, roots, knockups, things that are disruptive. It can help people, can help lock people down, catch people out, right? So if your character has crowd control, then you should look for someone on your team who is strong and stand near them. Okay. Now, if we're particularly weak, let's talk about Lash, for example. Lash, he has this tether. He could grapple. I mean, we don't have a target, so we're not able to grapple right now. But he leaps through the air. He's got this big slam move. Boom! They're stunned. They're knocked up. And he's got an ult. He comes. He grabs a bunch of people. He slams them in the ground. They're stunned again. So Lash has a considerable amount of CC. So even if he was a little bit behind, he didn't have the items that he needed to do the damage himself. If he knows that somebody on his team is strong enough to get the kills for him, all he really needs to do is be close enough to be able to stun enemies, to be able to use his abilities, and to be able to help secure those kills for whoever is strong at the moment. Another good example of this is a character like, I believe his name is Dynamo. His ult is, he's got this black hole, he just uses it, it sucks a whole bunch of people in. You don't need items for that ability to be useful. If you catch 2 or 3 people and they're stunned for like 5 seconds at a time, so long as you're standing next to somebody who has the damage to kill them, you're going to be plenty useful, right? And so even if you're not particularly strong, if you have the crowd control to help somebody that is strong, then standing with them while they're, again, leveraging their strength in a very direct way by killing enemy heroes or taking towers, then it's a good idea to just be standing next to them to help them. Now, if the person that is strong is not pushing an objective and is not fighting enemy heroes, they're just like off jungling or whatever, then you don't want to just stand next to them while they jungle, because that's not efficient for you. It's not efficient for anybody. You're not helping them. You're not helping them by CCing the camps. It's not doing anything. So it's better for you to go off and try to get as much value as you can for yourself than just like watching them accumulate value for themselves, right? The other way that this can go is your character doesn't have a lot of crowd control. So if your character doesn't have a lot of crowd control, how do I word this? You're trying to get stronger while helping your team indirectly. Okay. So you don't want to completely be like useless to your team. It's still preferable to not like be in here just hitting these jungle camps. If you don't have to be, you still want to be helping your team in an indirect way. So what does that mean? That means if there's a blob of your team that is pushing like this orange or this blue like middle lane, and they're trying to take team fights in this type of area, but all your hero contributes, I realize I still have the notepad up, but all your hero contributes is damage. We're talking about like Lady Geist, we're talking about like Haze, we're talking about like Shiv, right? These characters, they don't bring like big AoE stuns or anything like that to a team fight. All they really contribute is their high damage and kill threat potential. So if you aren't doing any damage, then there's no reason for you to be at a team fight. Instead, it's much better for you to be off in like one of these 2 side lanes and just pushing as hard as you can. And any time that you see heroes disappear from the minimap, you just assume like, oh, they're probably coming to kill me. They've had enough of me pushing this lane, and you just leave. Right. So why is this so good? It's good because you're pushing this lane. We're putting pressure on these objectives, and if the enemy doesn't respond, you will take objectives and you will make the game progressively harder for them. Funny enough, this lane already has lost its towers just from the little bit of pressure that we put on it. Minions are incredibly strong in this game, so if people don't come and respond to you, like, you're going to be pushing all the way through this lane, right? When people start to disappear from the minimap, again, we want to be leaving, right? Because it's better to be safe than sorry. We don't want to get caught. But in general, we're just trying to get enough gold and enough money to get the items that we need to be able to actually contribute to team fights and start producing a little bit of damage. So why these side lanes? It's a little bit away from the team fight. So the enemy heroes, they have to choose, like, should I report to this team fight and try to help win it? Or should I go deal with this Lash, in this example, this Haze, this Lady Geist, this Grey Talon that's off in this lane, just split pushing to try to get that pressure off. The side lanes are also really nice because as you push up the side lanes, you make it way easier to turn in this Soul Urn. So if you're not familiar, this Soul Urn, pick it up. We walk it all the way to the enemy side of the map. Or not the enemy side of the map, but the opposite side of the map. We're walking, we're escorting. And again, we picked it up from the leftmost lane, and we're turning it into the rightmost lane. So if both of those lanes were pushed up, then escorting this would be pretty safe. Like, we would feel pretty good about it. So we're coming over here. We're going to come to this little red area. We're going to turn it in. And this in a normal match would give a bunch of souls to everybody on our team. Like here you saw we just got a burst of 3,000 souls for ourselves. And then there's, it looks like about another, no, not even 500. That's way more. Oh, that's the purple walker. Never mind. Sorry. I was about to freak out. But in general, we still got like, you know, probably across the team like a 5,000 soul difference. So that's really, really good. Again, if you don't have the damage, the strength to be able to contribute to a team fight, and you don't have the crowd control to be able to contribute to a team fight, it's probably your job to be running the soul urn from one side of the map to the other. When you're escorting the soul urn, you aren't able to fire your weapon and you aren't able to use any of your abilities. So you're basically incapacitated and useless for the sake of fighting people or taking objectives anyway. So it's best that somebody who isn't planning on doing that anyway be doing that objective than like your 7-0 and 8 Infernus who's trying to carry the game, having to like stop what they're doing to come and escort the urn and being incapacitated for like the full minute or two that it's going to take to walk everything over, right? And, you know, at some point, as you're pushing all of these side lanes, again, farming lane creeps is very, very efficient. As this is going well, you're going to get enough souls at some point that you're going to get the items that you need to go and be effective in fights. And at that point, it starts to become worth it again for you to be reporting to team fights and trying to help. But if you are the type of character, again, that only produces damage, you don't have a lot of crowd control, and also you don't do any damage because you're so behind, then it is not worth it for you to be at a fight, right? So here we can just come and click these items. And this is a good thing to mention here too. If you, again, time is everything. And so if you don't know what all of these items do and you're not, you know, you're thinking about like reading these different things to be like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of good. Just find a build through the build browser and just buy the items that it tells you to buy in order. It's way better to like just buy items from a build and not necessarily know what they're going to do and not waste time than to like spend here dilly-dallying and trying to figure out exactly what the best thing to get is, right? So I think these are the biggest things. Another thing I guess we could talk about is when we're fighting as a team, this is going to be hard for you to coordinate because you're going to have to convince like 5 other people. But when you're fighting as a team, ideally, you're fighting for something. So there are a bunch of times that I'll see like, how do I explain this? Like say this blue lane was pushed in and it was like pushed into right about where we are. This tower is already dead. The lane is pushed all to this point. I've seen, you know, my teammates come and like try to fight in this particular area or even like up here in the mid boss during times where like it's not possible for the enemy team to be taking the mid boss if they win the fight. Like even if they win the fight, they're not going to take mid boss. And even if we were to lose the fight, like they're probably not going to be doing so much damage. Like maybe they'll take this Walker, maybe, but they're definitely not going to come up and take these. So this is a fight that I would say is like not really over anything. As opposed to like, if we were up here, we were pushing this Walker and a fight were to happen to break out, there's very clear stakes to a fight like this. If we win the fight, we're taking this Walker, we're probably going to take those 2 things back there. If we lose the fight, then it's fine. This wave is pushed up. They would have to first push this wave all the way back to the you know, our Walker and then try to push and put pressure on it. But by that point, you know, if we're relatively early in the game, it's very likely that at least a few of us are going to have respawn and be back to be able to defend this, right? So when you're fighting, you should be asking yourself like, okay, when I win this fight, what objective are we going to be taking? Or if it's a defensive fight, what am I trying to prevent from happening by fighting here? And if there isn't a clear answer, if you're just like, I kind of want to just kill a guy, it's a shooting game and I'm getting bored. I don't want to fight creeps anymore. I just want to fight somebody. And it's probably not the best fight to be taking. It's much better for the fight to have very clear stakes. Either you're fighting for this urn so that you can go and you turn it in. You're fighting for like a walker or an objective, or you're fighting to push into the enemy base. You're fighting to defend your base. You want to push this wave out because, you know, having this entire transit line here for the enemy team means that they can come and split push and put pressure on this purple lane at any point. Maybe you want to try to prevent this from happening, right? But you shouldn't be just like fighting randomly in the middle of the map when there's no real objective to be taken, without having like a clear idea of like, okay, if we win this fight, if we lose this fight, what is going to happen, right? Also, I probably should have mentioned this earlier, but there's a shop in the middle of the map. We were talking earlier about using your time efficiently. If you have enough health and you don't have to go back to heal, then it's much better to just report to one of these two shops in the middle of the map. One of them is here, and then mirrored on the exact opposite side. Exact same shop. You just report to whichever one is closest to you, and get the items you need and get back out. The other one is right in here. Oop. So yeah, those are the biggest things. Again, trying to use your time as effectively as possible. If you're very strong, if you're the strongest player on your team, you want to be leveraging that in a very direct way, trying to fight the enemy players, trying to push enemy objectives. If you are not particularly strong, but you have crowd control abilities that don't require items to be useful to people that are strong, then you want to go and try to play next to and stand next to people that are strong. Now, if you're not particularly strong and you don't have abilities that are useful just on their own, then you want to be useful by pushing out these side lanes, by trying to farm as efficiently as possible so you can get back in the game, by running the urn from your team for your team, since you're the least likely to be fighting anybody anyway. And that is going to be the best way for you to be able to help out your team. And another good thing about split pushing, I guess we should talk about this very quickly as well, because I know along with it already. The other thing about split pushing is that if we're one person in this lane, we're pushing this lane, right? We're pushing it pretty deep in enemy territory. And let's say that the enemy team is trying to push like down this orange lane or down this blue lane or what have you. And the fight is relatively even. It's not really breaking in one way or the other. If one person tries to come over and fight us and we just leave, then suddenly we've created a better situation for our team to be able to take this fight, right? Or if we're even strong enough to be able to duel one person, we're just not strong enough to be able to contribute a team fight, maybe that means that they have to send 2 people over to try to deal with you now. And if 2 people report to try to deal with one person, then suddenly you've created a 4v5 for your team, which is very favorable. So again, it's important that you're trying not to get caught, but if you can be enough of a distraction that it forces the enemy team to acknowledge you and send 1, 2 people over to try to deal with you, then that is huge. That can help your team win team fights, even if you're literally not there. So yeah, I presented a lot of information. I feel like I've rambled on for long enough. These are just the basics. And, you know, again, it's not very prescriptive. These are just like some mindset things that I want you to be thinking of. Alrighty, I'll see you guys in the next one where we're going to talk a little bit about the late game. Appreciate you all. Talk to you soon. All right, peace.